Yo guys, welcome back to another video. And Loki, I recently just got Sukuna and Gojo, so I'll be showcasing you pretty much like explaining all the shit that goes on with the unit kit and all the shit that's within the passive. So like, of course, you got the form where you can switch between either one or you in the clash. But yeah, of course, you got the regular version where they are versing each other. But pretty much, let me just get into the passive. So I'll place them down again. And yeah, as you can see, it's 168k yen to max. And yeah, they have a long list of passives, so pretty much you can see right here. Enemies enter the range, 50% slow. If an enemy is in 20% of their own range, it can repulse them. That's only if they're able to repulse, so as long as they're not on repulse lockout, they'll be repulsed. And then you can see attacks non-stop with random attacks. And then every other attack does 100% more damage and bypasses damage reduction. So, like, you legit just don't need to, like, apply nullify or anything, they'll just bypass damage reduction. And he, of course, does 100% more damage to overshields, so that's a big win for them. And then, of course, stuns bleeding enemies for 2 seconds, which in this form will be consistent because you're going to always have bleed going on to the enemy, so you basically have a consistent stun going on every time. Of course, it ends, like, the lockout finishes. And then the kitchen ability, attacks inflict cleave, which is pretty much just a 20% bleed amp. And bleed for 80% additional damage over 8 seconds. When an enemy enters the range or exits the range, deal 1 instance of 100% damage to that enemy, counts as an attack. 20-second cooldown per enemy. And yeah, the reason for this is because, oh boy, like there's a lot of random shit you can do with this. Let's say like you let me just bring in I don't have Shoko, man. Shoko increase the range by 20%. But let's say you had a range buffer and a boss was like here and you time stop them. You could pretty much just spam like increase the range and lower the range and have this go on like non-stop if it wasn't if there was no cooldown on it, which is what's needed in it. So yeah, it's good that there is a cooldown because there's a lot of funny stuff you probably would have been able to do. So yeah. And then next up you got dismantle. When this unit attacks a bleeding enemy inflicted with the cleave, inflict dismantle instead of cleave. And what dismantle does is it buffs bleed damage by 100%. Enemies inflicted with dismantled cannot receive repeated instances of the same DOT. So yeah, pretty much you can't like reapply the burn with Hibana. I'm pretty sure you also can't use Senator to detonate the burn. Well, of course, right now there's no burn right now, but Sukuna's variant has a burn. And like just a lot of things, like you can't have the same instance of DOTs, of the same DOT. If that does not make sense, I'll explain it in the comments for those who don't understand. And then adaptation ignores weather effects. If this unit is affected by a stats effect or debuff after 5 seconds, it becomes fully immune to that and buffs its own damage by 50% per immunity. So any boss stun, let's say Kisame, who also like gives you SPA debuff, which I'm pretty sure is the only enemy or boss that has SPA debuff, you'll be fully immune to that and gain 50% damage, which is crazy. And yeah, there's a lot of like type of debuffs and stats face that you can put onto this guy to get a lot of like this number like so high. And then bleed bonuses, buff range by 2% per bleeding enemy in range up to 40%. So basically 40% running range when there's like is that oh my days, maths is not mathsing. 20 bleeding enemies in range. When a bleeding enemy dies, buff damage by 2% up to 80%. So basically 40 enemies. When this unit applies bleed to an enemy dismantle, that bleed is guaranteed to crit. Which, yeah, so it's a lot of damage, yo. You can see right now 168k damage. I mean, yen to max out, and yeah, they are base damage 2.49 million. And we'll just check the DPS for this variant. I'm gonna get the kills in, so let me make sure the enemies are bleeding. So I'll spawn in. It only needs to be 40, so let's go 40. And let's just spawn in these guys. So let me get this stuff going again. So low detail mode off. And yeah, they'll kill them and of course get the 80% damage up. So you got 80% damage from that. And of course, if you haven't seen the Memorial, pretty much just mod that 45% amp to dismantled or time stopped enemies. And your critical hits from this unit inflict 10% bleed for 10% bleed for over 8 seconds. And whenever they're placed for the first time, they have 150% more damage for 60 seconds. Or 150% overhead. And yeah, of course, you also have the range buff, but I don't really need to show that, so I guess I'll just showcase to you guys the DPS over this just one boss, just purely by them. So let's go like this, and I'll do an overshielded enemy afterwards, just to showcase to you the extra damage that they are doing, but yeah, just for now, I'll showcase this. Okay, so I think I'll start from 825. Let me turn the VFX on, and you can see the indicators as well. You can see it's a lot of damage, you know. It's roughly been like 14 seconds, so yeah. They can do a lot of damage, you know, it's crazy. And what's nice about them, as of course in the dual variant, the versus state, they are full AoE, you know, full AoE the 83 range is kind of crazy. And this can even increase by like, is it 40%? Yeah, 40%, it's crazy. And yeah, it's only been like 40 seconds right now, the DPS, you can see EDPS is hitting like 15 million. Yeah, EDPS, the DPS right now would be kind of crazy. And yeah, the VFX are pretty nice as well. It hasn't been 1 minute yet, I think it's nearing 1 minute mark. So I think it's been a minute now, so I'll put the DPS on screen for that minute, and yeah, you guys can see what it was. Okay, so roughly in those 60 seconds, they did around like 6.4 million DPS just by themselves, which isn't too bad, you know. They only got that amp as well, and it's not an overshielded enemy, so of course with an overshielded enemy that's 100% more damage. They also got slow plus repulse, so they got a lot going on with them, you know. Of course the versus state isn't really the best. The singular forms of them are just like a lot better. But yeah, I guess I would test against an. I guess you don't need to test about. I don't need to test for an overshoulder enemy. You just double that DPS because of course 100% more damage to an overshoulder enemy. I guess now I'll showcase to you each state, and I'll go for Sukuna first because I am very much aware of the bug with him, and I'll explain to you guys what that bug is. So yeah, as you can see, there's a little cutscene that goes on for them. You can pick between the two, and yeah, we'll just pick Sukuna here. And yeah, with Sukuna, he pretty much retains the kitchen and adaptation passive, but he gets one more little passive right here, which attacks inflict 200% burn over 8 seconds. When this unit applies burn to an enemy affected by dismantle, that DOT bypasses shields and damage reduction. If so, this unit is replaced as itself when placed again. So let me just replace him. You can see he becomes himself again. And a lot of his passives is just the same, of course. And where he let me just get these enemies going again though. So these guys, little ones right here. But yeah, where Sukuna excels at is his binding vows. As you can see, there's one that sets his active cooldown to 60 seconds permanently, which makes you lose 40% damage. What the binding vows do, they are all permanent buffs. But I mean, they are permanent. Once you select it, it's permanent. But it makes you lose like either your range or your damage. All of them makes you lose damage, except for this one, which makes you lose 30% range. So as you can see, this one, all enemies are inflicted with a 2% bleed for 4 seconds. Every second loses 20% damage. This one spawns in Maharaga to walk the track with a HPE equal to 10x this unit's damage, loses 30% damage. This is probably the best one, gains overcrit and 100% crit rate. With a good burby, you can get a lot out of this. And if you are running like Deadeye on the Memoria, it's pretty nice as well. Then loses 30% range. Anytime this unit applies burn or bleed, apply the same DOT of the opposite, loses 30% damage. This is the one that is bugged. It just does a lot of damage, especially when hitting a lot of enemies, because let's say there's like 40 enemies or 50 enemies together. You hit one enemy, this little flip that it does has like a small AoE, so it's hitting multiple enemies at once. And all those DOTs that are getting like flipped, because you're going to be hitting like 40 enemies at once, the little splash that it does do onto each of the bosses, it's just so much damage. I guess I'll showcase to you guys that little bug. But yeah, pretty much the last one as well. You spawn in Argito, granting full map wide immunity and 30% increased damage dealt. And this is one of the craziest ones for a unit to have, because if you guys aren't aware, it seems like 30% amp for himself, but it's not for himself. Every unit in your team gets a 30% amp. So it's basically working in the same way as Bubbled with the 30% amplification, but it works for every unit. It's just the same thing as Bubbled basically, and Slumber, which is crazy because no unit in the game, excluding debuffs, like if we're excluding debuffs here, there's no unit in the game you can just give an amp to all your units, which is crazy. So that's why he's such a great unit. And of course, Curse and Cosmic. Cosmic not really doing much for him because I'm pretty sure he is immune, right? Yeah, he is immune. So yeah, the Curse, of course, 30% more damage to bosses, which is very nice. Okay, that's legit all his binding vows. I'd say what's nice about the way he works is you can pretty much just get his damage number higher up and work around his overheads and make him just hyper buffed. So I'll be showcasing him with pretty much just this one and this one. Of course, I could take the amplification. And what's nice about him, you can pretty much just bring Urza and other buffers, even like Ice Queen, a lot of different buffers to like just help him hit his maximum potential. But I'll be showcasing with just these two, and I'll showcase the bug as well. So we'll go into this. Let me just put in the same boss, and yeah, I'll show you the DPS with just this variant right here. So yeah, you'll see a lot of damage. Yeah, and you can see what I mean. There's just a lot of damage going on. He's such a crazy unit, which how much DOT damage he is doing. This is only with 2 Vars as well. If I had the 30% amp, it would be even crazier. Even if I had this one as well. It's so stupid how much damage he can do. And like also, I'd even get the 30% damage from the Sinister Sanctum, which of course is the ability of his old variant, or his secret variant, and it's just giving you 30% more damage, or 30% more overhead. I guess I won't include it into this little DPS showcase because it's not really like something that you're always gonna have. And it's nearly been a minute. So yeah, I think it's been a minute right now, so I'll put on screen how much damage he did do in that 1 minute. And yeah, as you guys can see, with just those two binding vows on him and a 1.5x overhead, he is doing pretty much 17 million DPS by himself, which is crazy. So he's got the 30% more damage to bosses, only 1.5x overhead, over crit, which is pretty much just giving him a lot of extra crit damage, and he's guaranteed critting. And then he's just doing a lot of burn damage with dismantled as well. There's just so much going on for his kit. And I did even factor in this passive as well, which like of course I could give him immunities and get this damage number up as well. So there's a lot for Sukuna, and it's why he's such a good unit. Let me just showcase to you like the little bugs. So let me just skip some waves and get like stronger enemies in, and I'll showcase to you what I mean. So let's get to like wave 10 and I'll disable waves again. So if you go here and spawn in like let's say 50 enemies right here, flipping out, you can see how much damage is getting done. Like it's so stupid what can be done with this. And yeah, this is the bug. So let's just say that one bleed stack that is getting applied to, let's say one Vegeta, and the binding vow, which of course turns that burn into a bleed. I mean that bleed into a burn. That burn is getting applied to all of these guys. And since he's also doing that burn as well, that burn is also getting turned into a bleed. That's getting applied to all of them. That's only for one hitting one of them. So when he's hitting 50 of them or 40 of them, however many he's hitting, he's pretty much just doing so many DOTs in a small little range. And it's just basically just exploding all the enemies. You can see his EDPS hit 500 million. It's genuinely like, depending on how many enemies are clumped up together, it could probably even hit 1 trillion DPS, which is crazy. But yeah, that is the bug with him. This little part right here is bugged into oblivion. But yeah, I guess let me just showcase to you these ones. So you can see this one, You legit just have Mahoraga walk the path, 10x HP, and let's just say, let's go. Okay, that's kind of too strong. Let's just put. Would that work? Let's go. Yeah, that's fine. So let's say he dies. Okay, he just killed it. What the flip? The flip, mate. He just respawned. So yeah, we'll go for this. See how much damage he is doing with one hit. Yeah, and he also, of course, on hit does bleed and burn. And he just constantly respawns. So yeah, as long as an enemy is pretty close to base, he's a nice, like, I guess, lifeline, you know? You can just bring him in. As long as you have, like, such a high overhead that he can do a lot of damage. You can see he's just gonna keep going. There's, like, a 3-second cooldown on him, which, of course, stops him from insta-regenning, but he's a nice unit to have here to, like, a nice, like, part of him to have here to, like, if you wanna, like, secure yourself, like, any leaks and just deal with the leaks. And then Agglamation, of course, is just a 30% amp and you're losing damage. This one is just extra DOT damage, so 20% less damage. And this one is just setting the active cooldown to 60 seconds. So that's pretty much it for Sukuna and all I can show you for Sukuna. I'll make a best teams video including Sukuna pretty much tomorrow or whenever that bug gets fixed. I mean, I can still showcase him, but it's just like I would have to like do my tests differently because of course that bug is gonna affect him a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Sukuna. Let's get into Gojo now. Okay, now picking Gojo's side. You can see his little cutscene. I like his cutscene more than the Sukuna one. It just seems a lot cleaner. You go into that kick into a hollow purple, pretty sure. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, Gojo. So pretty much you can see his damage number is a lot higher than Sukuna. That's to make up for him not having a lot of the DOT damage that Sukuna does have. And yes, I do have Contagious on my Memoria. For Gojo's variant, it really would not be ideal. So if you're going to be using Gojo, you don't want Contagious at all on his Memoria. You can run Divinity or Deadeye. And yeah, this is pretty much his passives. He keeps the Infinity and he gets 2 new passives. So it's pretty much just the same shit as Sukuna, ignoring weathers, and he is immune to status effects and debuffs. When this unit kills an enemy, it reduces active cooldown by 1 second. And his current active cooldown is 120 seconds, and he has a 15-second time stop. So pretty much, yeah, he can like get it back down to like an instant void again. So while the void is active, buff this unit by 100% damage. It's very nice. Critical hits from this unit deal 50% more damage. If sold, retains all upgrades. It's pretty much the same exactly as Sukuna as well. And then this is his other passive related to his cursed output. Gain 10% meter per attack. Meter consumption can be set per attack. Buff crit rate and damage by the meter spent. These values reset every attack. If meter reaches 0, this unit stops attacking for 3 seconds and fills meter to max. So pretty much what you're going to be doing with him is going to set him to like a low curse output, let's say like 10. Let's just spawn in like a decently strong boss, I guess. Let's go here. So you put him in 10. Let him build a meter and you go to 100%, and then you of course set him to 100%, and that way you can have 100% output for every attack. And you're utilizing his void. I'm gonna be showcasing his DPS against, of course, the boss for 60 seconds. And what's sad about him is he doesn't really have full uptime on this, because yes, there is time stop lockout, but he's not really having like full uptime like Sukuna. Because Sukuna, he's always gonna have dismantled on the enemy, but for Gojo, he's not really gonna have that. But yeah, Gojo is a very good support because of course he has the 50% slow, the repulse, he's got the stun as well. That's 3 stats effects already. He's also got the void. He's overall just a very good unit, bro. Such a good unit to use. And yeah, he's doing decent amount of crit damage as well. Like his each hit is doing, like you can see, 58 million. And yeah, his bleed ticks are not too bad, you know, because when he does crit, he does 10% of his own damage as bleed, which isn't the best, isn't the worst, but yeah, it's pretty nice. And of course here you can, yeah, let me just showcase the DPS over 60 seconds. So I'll spawn the enemy again and we'll start again. So let's go from here. So use that, use Void quickly. You can see he's at 19.22 million damage. Each bleed tick is doing 1.1 mil. And each hit is doing roughly 102 million, which is crazy. So 15 seconds has been up, so the time stop is gone. But since the enemy is going to be on time stop lockout for another like 10-15 seconds, he still does that extra damage, the 45% more damage. You see he's hitting for 58 million instead of the 50, was it 51 before? 52? But yeah, overall I'd say Gojo is a very good unit. I'll say in terms of rankings, I'll have Sukuna number 1. Would Naruto be number 2? I don't know. It's between Naruto and Gojo for number 2. You can just flip them too. I'd say Akuma versus Ashura is like it might slide in the top 5, I'm not sure. Maybe 4 or 5. They are pretty good, but they do need, of course, Broly to amp them up because they are an unbound unit. And yes, I think it's been 1 minute for this test, so I can just showcase to you his actual damage number. So let me put it on screen right now.